to the next one, which is our main timeline window. And here we are going to spend a lot of time. So here we can drag all the layers in and create different stuff. We have a lot of cool buttons here, which I'm going to show you now. First of all, we can start here with these two buttons. Here you can activate and deactivate a layer. So you can make it visible or not visible. Same with the audio. You can turn off the audio or turn it on. In the case you have a lot of layers, let's say we have a green layer, also a red layer, and let's change their size. And now you can see all of them, right? And if we want to solo one layer, so one way would be to turn off the other layers, just because we just want to see that layer right now. Sometimes you just want to see that one layer to make the edit, which can also be a big game changer. If you have a huge edit, you just want to make changes to one specific layer, and you don't need to play back your whole graphics you have created. You could just use this button here. So let's say we have all of them activated, and this is a case of having like, I don't know, 40 layers, and you're just clicking on that button here, and it's going to solo that layer. So you don't have to turn 39 layers off like that. No, it's just one button. This one, you can solo that layer. Really important to know that. Next up, here is the lock. So you can just lock the layer, so you cannot change anything. So if you have, for example, created a layer, adjustment layer with a color or something, you can just lock that layer and you don't have to worry. You can still use Command A and it's just going to use the layer. They are not locked. Yes, really important. Then you have different blending modes. Same with Premiere Pro. Imagine we have two clips in here, or we have something else. Let's say we want to blend these two clips together. Let's move this one a little bit more further. Blending modes. You can change right here, let's say exclusion or like a difference or something. So right here at the bottom, for like a quick access, you can access the blending mode, which is slightly different to Premiere Pro. Because in Premiere Pro, you have to go to the effects controls window. We can open here the transform option, and here we have all the settings like anchor point, position, scale, and yeah, rotation, opacity, which is pretty cool because when you can just quick access it here. And here we are at the main point why you need shortcuts. So pressing S, for example, right away brings a shortcut for scale. So just in a second, you can access the scale. Whole different in Premiere Pro, you have to find the layer, you go up to effects control, you change the scale. So this takes a lot of time. Here, you just choose the layer you're always working in here. Just press S, bring up the layer, and now here you can create a keyframe on that stopwatch. Let's say want it to be that size, and at the end want to scale it up. Boom, and like that, we have created a cool keyframe, you know? So that's pretty fast. Same goes on with P for position. You can do exactly the same, changing everything, bringing S up for scale again, making a keyframe and scaling it up and down again. And then there's another cool thing. If you want to see all the keyframes you have created, you just have to press U and it brings all the parameter you have keyframed. And this is really important to know and to understand, because like that you can just quick access all the transform options, also the anchor point, the rotation, opacity with T, for example. So make sure you read that paper I gave you where it names all the keyframes, all the keyboard shortcuts, because these are really important here in After Effects. Yes, so you have to understand the different modes here and how we change the blending modes. That is perfect. Let's move on to the next one. Next one, which we're going to talk, is the select matte. This one is really important because I use this one a lot. Let's say we have that window here. We can just scale this one down a second and let's create a shape. Let's say we create a rectangle shape and let's draw a rectangle shape like that. Have no layer selected and we have a shape. So this is a shape layer we've created. And if we use that track matte option, we can just use that shape as a track matte. Whatever area we have that shape is going to be affected as a mask, which can be super helpful to slide stuff in and out. Yeah, super easy to mask and yeah, use as a track matte. You can also invert that track mask, so it's going to be the outside. So there's a lot you can do, which is pretty amazing. Yes, so let's set it to none, delete that layer again. And you can also here with that tool, you can parent to other layers. So let's say we have created a null object. You can also just right click here into that panel and create a new object, for example, a null object. And we have created a null object, which is pretty much just a layer, which is not visible, cannot see it, but you can add information. So for example here, so I've just added this slide here. You can see it's sliding on the null object, but you cannot see anything on the null object. So I can now parent it with that button here to the null object. And you can see here in the drop down menu, you can also use that one to parent it, pretty much just showing it where is it linked to. And now you see it's moving. So whenever I'm animating the null object here, I'm not animating the red solid right now. I'm only animating the null object and it's moving. And this can be pretty helpful to link stuff to trackers, for example, to tracking data, because here in After Effects is really helpful and you can still animate your actual layer whatever you want. You can you have completely freedom, but it's parented to that object. So let's see, you can parent it to that null object but still change the position and animate even the position of the solid. But you're gonna understand this in further videos how we can make use of that. Let's go further here. With the right click on new, you can also create text. You can just start writing text. The faster way is just to press Command T and you can create a text. And you can now either create it vertical or horizontal. You can change this up here as well. Creating text is pretty important. So if you want to create vertical text, it's just Shift T. If you want to create horizontal, it's Command Shift T. And there we go, text. Nice. And the next thing is creating a solid, which can be really important. Here we can now name that solid. We can give them the size. Usually it's set to the size of your comp, which is really helpful. Here you can also change the color and it's pretty much just going to be a plain solid. We're going to use solids a lot. Faster way to create a solid, by the way, Command Y and boom, you're right away creating a solid. You see, it's so much faster. The workflow is going to be so quick if you use shortcuts. Next up, we can create a camera. Cameras we are going to use a lot for 3D work in general. So we can animate actually a 3D camera, which is really, really cool. What we are going to learn. And next up, we can create a shape layer. So this is going to be a rectangle tool, like a rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, or star. You can also use a shortcut Q here, which is going to create a shape layer as well. Next up, we can create a adjustment layer, which is also really cool and important. On adjustment layer, you can, for example, search for the effect Lumetri color and just apply it to the effect controls. You can either go through your effects control up here or just edit it down here. So let's say we want to add some more saturation to that, something like this. And yeah, that can be stored on an adjustment layer. It's the same like in Premiere Pro. So you have just an adjustment layer where you can store like different effects and do different stuff with. Next up, we can create a content aware fill layer, which brings up this area here, but we need to draw a selection first, which we can actually content aware fill. Content aware fill fills that area we are selecting with the data around it. So we are going to use this in further tutorials as well. For the logo flip, for example, this can be really helpful. And next up, of course, you can create some Photoshop file. So it's going to open up Photoshop and yes, you can create a Photoshop file right in here. So now we can right click it and we have a lot of options here. For example, like creating a new mask. We can now then go into the mask and shape path and have here a couple of options, but I'm not really using them. You can set the quality. You have the transform options. This one can actually be pretty helpful. So if you have scaled down your clip or you're importing a clip with a different frame size to your comp, you can just like right click it, go to transform and fit to comp. And that can be really helpful. So you don't have to tweak like your scale and stuff. You can also go through your markers, your blending modes, but you see your blending modes here, right? All the different effects, but we will rather go to the effect panel. Then you also have your keyframe options. You can also reveal your clip like in the source project in your finder. Next up is camera, but I'm not using this one a lot here. Pre-composing, and pre-composing is super important. You can pre-compose single layer or multiple layer. Like let's say we have this layer here and we want to pre-compose them. And pre-composing is pretty much creating a new composition, like a pre-composition. And there we have two options. If we are just pre-composing one layer, you will see the other option is available as well. And it's pretty much creating a new composition and putting everything together in one new container, in one new composition. I'm usually moving all attributes into the new composition. Here it says use this option to place the currently selected layers together into a new intermediate composition. And that's usually what we want to do. Like we want to put everything together into a new comp and still have only this new comp in our existing main comp. Leaving all attributes would mean use this option to create a new intermediate composition with only file name in it. The new composition will become source to the current layer. This basically means that you still can affect this clip in here, but you will understand this later on. It's just really important that you know you have that option. And I'm usually moving everything, especially if you have more than one clip. what I usually have is like I'm pre-composing them and I always click to adjust composition duration to the time span of the selected layer, which means if we have, that layer's length is going to be something like that, and we pre-compose everything and we have that not checked, and it's going to make the length of your composition, like the big composition you have in here we're working in. Usually I just want that to trim as well, so I adjust the composition duration to the time span of the selected layer. Here we go, now it's same length as our layers is, because this helps me a lot to see how long my length of the clip of the shape layer I have inside the comp is. This is a really important button here, which I press a lot. Then you can also invert your selection, select children and rename. Rename is also, there's a faster way, you just have to press enter and you can rename your clip. Easy as that. Same way up here in the project, our window, you can just enter and rename them to anything you want. Pretty easy. And next up, we have that cool buttons up here. Since we have created a new pre-comp, the button here can help to hover between your comps. So you can just use this one to jump fast between comps, so you don't have to imagine we have that one closed. We just click here and just move to that comp. So if you click tab, you can pretty much just jump between those clips, those comps, and especially if you have more comps, like this is saving a lot of time. You can also activate enable frame blending for all layers, and here that is a really magical button. This is enabling motion blur. Let's say we create a position keyframe, bringing up P with position, and at the beginning of that clip, this clip I want to be out somewhere here. So now this one is moving in like that, and I want to have motion blur. So usually you have to keyframe motion blur, but now by activating here the motion blur on the comp, which brings us actually to this button, toggle and switches modes. Here we actually have two different options. Here you see the blending mode and the track matte and the parenting and the link. And when you click on that, you won't see the track matte here, but you have some more options, like making it a 3D layer, which is pretty cool because we can move it now in 3D space. Now it's important to know that here you can activate motion blur, and here you can see now it's also enabled in the comp. See, here we see motion blur. Just by pressing that one button, we have created natural motion blur related to the amount you have set creating the comp, which I showed you earlier. This can be really, really cool and helpful. Here is a really magical button. This is the 3D object button. And now you see we have different options here for the position. We just got a new axis. So this is pretty much the Z axis, and we are now able to change not only position here, but making it a 3D object. We have more options, like we have that rotation going on. We actually just made this a 3D object, which is pretty cool, which will work a lot, especially if you create a 3D camera, which you know you can do here.